take just a moment to thank 475 for being a founding sponsor of Passive House Accelerator. And one of the earliest supporters and ongoing supporters of our work, and we're just deeply grateful for that help. So Brad Moore is a 475 product consultant in New England. He got his start in construction in high school through vocational carpentry training before attending the University of New Hampshire, where he earned his degree in construction management. Working for many years as a project manager for one of North America's leading timber frame and panelized prefabricated construction companies brought out Brad's passion for sustainable and responsible construction methods. Outside of work, he enjoys time with his family, golfing, and woodworking. Welcome, Brad, and please take it away.
All right, thank you. Let me just share my screen here. So thank you for having me. I think Zach did a pretty good job of introducing me, but my next slide, I'll touch on that again a little bit more. As we strive to reduce the embodied carbon in the buildings, our built environment, the Passive House community is doing a great job at that. Mass timber has become an obvious part of that equation. We're seeing more and more of that. We're pushing the code to allow more and more of that. And as we do that, we need to protect these structures. Wood is inherently more susceptible to weather damage than the materials that we're trying to replace. So we need to take the measures to protect those during the construction phase. So today we're going to talk about ADHERO Solitex ADHERO VISTO. This is Pro Clima's newest product offering that is entirely focused on weather protection, temporary weather protection of wood structures, primarily CLT, GLT, NLT, and all the mass timber elements out there. Quickly about me, Zach did a good job. I'm the product consultant for New England at 475. I cover most of the Northeast minus New York and Connecticut is the only New England state that I don't have. My contact info is here for anybody in New England, or if you're outside of New England, which I'm sure many of you are, also feel free to reach out and I can connect you with the right product consultant for your territory for ADHERO VISTO or anything else we offer. So we need to protect these timber components, but having the ability to see what's below that protection layer is a pretty critical part of the equation as well. ADHERO VISTO is highly transparent. It's non-porous membrane that will allow the tradespeople on site to see any fasteners, joints, or markings below the material after it is installed. At 1.1 perms, it does allow for a slight amount of outward drying should any vapor present itself behind that material. One of the more obvious reasons we need to protect is from an architectural standpoint. We're using mass timber as a architectural element as much as a structural element, so there tends to be a face of the material that will stay exposed after construction is complete. And it's a beautiful product, so this is obviously something we should be doing, in my opinion. So we need to protect generally from above, from any water coming through that might stain. So that's kind of first and foremost, that's what ADHERO is doing. But also on top of that, it is going to protect from those panels becoming saturated, which will protect from cracking, delamination, or swelling that could occur from all that water seeping into the laminations of these panels. So we're doing, we're protecting the architectural beauty, but we're also trying to protect the structure as well. So just to recap a little bit on that. So this material is fully adhered. So it is going to stay in place after it's installed. It's not going to slip or move around on you at all. In terms of water resistance, it's going to keep the timbers or the panels below from staining or becoming saturated, and leading to those bigger structural issues that I just touched on. And then again, that clear surface is going to allow for you to see through the material to the structure below, to inspect what's below or see any layout lines that may have been marked prior to the membrane itself going down. And we'll see some photos of some actual products installed here that you'll see just how clear this stuff is. So The install process of this is quite simple. It's a fully adhered membrane. So in terms of prepping the CLT or GLT, NLT, I always default to CLT, but there are many variations. First, we need to make sure the surface is clean, free of splinters, free of dust and debris, or free of any grease, silicone, or anything else that might be a little slippery that might affect the adhesion. So basically, the image shows it, a scraper, a broom, or even better yet, a little leaf blower like that would work just fine to clear most of that off. And then, as with all of Pro Clima's fully adhered membranes and tapes, the adhesive is a solid acrylic and is pressure sensitive. So you're going to need something like a Press Fix XL, which is like a big squeegee, that blue tool you see in that top image, broom or a roller on site to apply pressure, and that'll begin the molecular bond of that acrylic adhesive. It's also worth noting that these solid acrylics have no water introduced in the manufacturing process. So they're not water soluble. So should they get wet, that's not going to affect their ability to adhere. Once that adhesion has already occurred, it's not going to break down that bond. We're marketing this as a mass timber protection layer, but it's going to stick to just, or adhere to just about every product or every building material on site for the most part. So if we run through that list there, we have obviously all of Pro Clima's membranes and tapes. They're gonna be compatible. Mass timber components, OSB, plywood, metals, plastics, exterior grade gypsum. There may be situations where maybe you come across a porous material where it does not want to adhere all that well. At that point, we can couple this with Pro Clima's Tescon Primer RP, which is a primer product that you put on the substrate prior to installing the membrane. So that's going to help it adhere to a porous wood insulation panels, perhaps concrete, or maybe some rough OSB or brick if you need to make joints to that. As I mentioned, once this material is on, it is a little tough to tell it's there. We have to zoom in on that picture, but it certainly is. This image, I think, actually maybe had some social media comments where someone said you need to protect those CLTs, and I think the installer had to point them to that ADHERO logo there to say it's there. That's just how clear this product is. So in terms of that water ponding, so it's doing its job. You can see where there's puddles on top of it. So when that occurs, we do advise that you remove that ponding water, within 24 hours or so of when that occurs. That's really, a lot of that's to keep it from wicking up into any surfaces nearby. Like you can see those plywood boxes to the left, bottom left. I think that's a protective box around a post. You can see where that capillary suction is happening up. So it's really, we're not as concerned about maybe the ADHERO, anything coming through that, but it's more that you might start to affect the surfaces around it if you don't deal with that ponding. Plus, any water is kind of a hassle on a job site. So, and those holes right there are just to show that's the same panels from above that we're looking at from above. That's below where we're not seeing any water come through. So the membrane's outer layer, you can lay out directly on top. So we're clearly shows chalk lines for layout. It's going to retain red chalk lines really well. Most people are using red when they want the chalk line to stay, maybe blue if it's more of a temporary. And then that microfiber fleece is optimized surface for non-slip traction and superior bonding. So again, any other Pro Clima tapes are going to bond well to this membrane. In terms of installation, and we have a video where the builder we worked with on a project in Maine will talk a little bit about this, but the split release backing is a pretty big advantage in terms of getting the strips, the membrane started. So basically get the material where you want it, adhere that 10-inch top strip, and then before, once you have everything situated where you need it, then you can release the rest of the backing to then adhere the rest of the membrane to the subsurface. It has a high tear resistance, so it's gonna hold up well to nail tears, any puncture potentials. it's normal wear and tear of a job site. If you're going to drop a big timber on it or drag a steel beam across it, sure, that might affect it, but in terms of just general wear and tear, it's going to hold up really well to the typical kind of beating it would take on a construction site on a day-to-day basis. Again, the reliable bonding, and then it will self-seal around any fasteners that are number 9 or smaller. Just to kind of put that into realistic numbers, that's about a 3/16 screw. In terms of water tightness, ADHERO VISTO will resist up to actually greater than 32 feet of water column. And then once this product is installed, we do have an exposure rating of 6 weeks, so 42 days fully exposed to the weather. Inevitably, you're going to end up, with situations where you have a vertical interaction. So we'll go over kind of how to deal with those interruptions. So this is speaking to, a CLT to a CLT. So horizontal with the ADHERO VISTO on it, coming into maybe a CLT wall or a parapet wall that's CLT, something of the like. So in that scenario, we're specifying that you utilize Tescon Vanna tape. Anybody who's familiar with Pro Clima, this is the blue tape you've handled time and again. That's pretty versatile for many uses. So basically, we want you to bring that ADHERO to that up to that vertical interaction, and then seal to that with the ADHERO. With the Tescon Vanna. And then in terms of any vertical wood, maybe a post that sits on this, we are advising that you address the end grain of any post to deal with any capillary suction that may happen. So any water that wants to get drawn up through that end grain. That's not to say that we have the solution in our tool bag for that, but I know there are a lot of products out there that are kind of paint on or brush on, maybe waxy. I've seen some wax coatings that can handle that. And then that bottom bullet point, just in terms of sealing height, depends on exposure. So what that's telling us is, that blue strip of tape, the Tescon Vanna that you're seeing there, know where your trim's going to cover, because once that's on there, you're going to have a heck of a time getting it off. So, understand if you have 1 inch of wiggle room, 2 inches, 4 inches, etc. And then we're going to probably run into some vertical interactions that may not be wood, and that's where things get a little more complicated. We need to just switch things up. So most likely that's going to be maybe an elevator shaft. That's concrete. So we can stick with a Tescon Vanna for making that joint. We probably need to introduce primer RP with that, just the porosity of the concrete. Maybe the Tescon Vanna may or may not stick as well to it, so that primer is kind of goes on first, and then your Vanna can stick to that. But more often when we have a concrete connection, we'll just say, let's not deal with a primer, let's just go with the tape. So we'll switch to Contiga Solida IQ, which has a higher initial tack, so it's going to grab onto the pores in that concrete and kind of fill those voids a little bit better for us and adhere much better. And then again, we're basically, our goal is protecting those edges against standing water. And then in terms of drainage, so back to kind of the water sitting on top of there, all said and done, now we have to manage that water. So there's some options there. Some folks will utilize any pre-drilled penetrations for plumbing as kind of a kind of spillway or a drain to sweep all the water down into. Plumbing to the exterior, some folks will install a gutter system, or more likely it's probably a scupper or something on the edge that it just gives you a pathway to get the water off of there. And then just touching on expansion joints. So you may have expansion joints, or you may have interactions with concrete where the formwork's not perfect. So that top image there is just showing us the Contiga HF it's a flexible acrylic adhesive. So it's comes in a 10-ounce tube or a 20-ounce sausage tube. You use a caulking gun to put it on, and that will cure but never fully harden. So it's going to flex with the building if the building ever moves, and it also is going to do a better job of filling any voids like you see in that top image versus the tape. And then I had mentioned I'd mentioned a video that we were going to share. So this is, I think, 6-7 minutes long. So about at the launch of ADHERO VISTO, I took a phone call from this gentleman up in Maine, Casey Huffnagel, buys a lot of Pro Clima products from us. He's very into the weeds of the building science. He said, "What do you think? What do you got for me to protect the tops of these CLTs?" And he was 2 days prior to us releasing ADHERO VISTO, so he patiently waited for a couple days and um, did a great job installing it, so allowed us to come on site and then do some filming so he can give you kind of a real hands-on take on handling the material, and kind of how easy it is to work with, and talk about his experience with his crew. So I think Zach's going to flip us over to the video right now.
I'm Donna McNeil. I'm the Executive Director of the Ellis Beauregard Foundation, located here in Rockland, Maine. We're a foundation that supports individual artists. And we are building this beautiful live-work studio space. We're very proud of it. The architect is Matthew Baird Associates from here in Maine and also Manhattan. And I'm the client.
I'm Casey Huffnagel with Mussel Ridge Builders. I'm the contractor here for the Ellis Beauregard Foundation. South County Post and Beam was the installing group for the CLTs. So this is a unique project in Maine right now and across the country of using cross-laminated timbers as a residential finish for a project. Overall effect is carbon sequestration, the ease of installation, and the health of the home are only going to be continuing to get better over time. So the makeup of the assembly for this project is we start with the 4 3/4 inches of CLT, Mento 1000, 6 1/4 inches of wood fiber insulation with an 1.5 inch air gap, and 3 inches of a mass timber facade. Working closely with the architects, we've been able to go through all of the different mechanicals, figuring out where all of that has to go. All of the ducting work and has been the biggest challenge in this realm. But once that's done, it helps almost build itself because we have a finished interior for the project. In talking with my regional representative from 475, we found that the ADHERO VISTO was going to be the best product to cover the roof and allow for us to be able to see what's happening underneath. If we've missed any bubbles coming through that allow moisture to get into the CLTs, we've been able to look at that and find those spots, having the clear VISTO as the finish on top. Here we are up on the roof. You can see right here a little bit of moisture buildup underneath the VISTO. And by the end of the day, all of the moisture will be able to come out and through, and unlike a ice and water shield where any of the moisture is stuck underneath your membrane, this is going to allow it to breathe, and that's going to keep for the lifetime of the CLTs, be able to keep those in really good stead. Because the VISTO itself is a pretty rigid product, unlike an ice and water shield, where you can really use it to spread into the corners. You can see in a lot of these corners for this project, we had to do some origami in order to get the shapes to come together. This product worked very well to be able to get the tight spots all the way around. And anything that we missed, we can pick up because of the clear nature of the product. So some of the biggest challenges of the build so far have been making sure that we have the waterproofing set and ready right behind the installation of the cross-laminated timber. This year had quite a rainy summer, and trying to make sure that we have everything on hand beforehand. So here we are in one of the studios. You can see some of before we were able to get the ADHERO VISTO down onto the roof. You can see just a little bit here of the staining that's occurred because of the nature of the CLTs being flat and then also being seamed and put together. Each of the seams will take any water coming through them and moisture and have that follow all the way along the seam. So unless you get your whole rooftop covered and with the membrane, you're gonna have drips coming in and through on the CLTs. And so advice to give to anybody is make sure to have your membrane, your ADHERO VISTO ready for you before you start doing the install. And that way, it's as you put the roof down, you can be putting your product on top. The ADHERO VISTO, it's a split backing. You can peel the first part of the backing off, and you can put it right down to a snap line and then be able to use that to peel the rest of it away. It's much more forgiving. You get a little bit more than one chance, and once it's down, after sweeping the top of it, it seals very nicely. And if there are any air bubbles in the process of putting it down, you can see those as you're going along, and afterwards, even coming back afterwards, you can reseal the product. Using ADHERO VISTO for CLT projects is a great way, especially with multi-story facilities where you might have a finished ceiling and you have flooring that's going to be on top of the CLTs. It will save you time overall because you're not going to have moisture coming underneath the ADHERO VISTO, and it will allow for any spots as your traffic is going through to be able to see where those are, see any penetrations coming through the product, and allow you to fix it in an easy manner. Mussel Ridge Builders, we're a high-performance home building company in Mid-Coast, Maine, and we are working on taking carbon sequestration into as a matter of importance, and also the tightness of the home, and using technologies to continue to increase the performance of every home that we build. Being a part of the building trades today and seeing where building science is taking us in allowing for healthy homes that breathe well and are here for the next generations, all of those things make it a great place to be a builder in this area.
All right, Brad, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic presentation. It was also really great to be able to see it in the field, in real life on the video. So was there anything else that you wanted to add before we jump into the Q&A portion here?
No, I don't think so. I think Casey did a good job of explaining his experience. I think that makes a lot of difference to hear somebody who's used it talk about it versus someone like me who sells it talk about it, right? Obviously I'm gonna like it. So no, I think he covered it pretty well.
Okay, awesome. Well, we've Kim just shared the queue for questions, and up first is Lori Winter. So Lori, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, can you hear me okay first?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. I was just wondering how this product might compare, the pros and the cons as compared to a factory applied coating. I know sometimes up here we see sandsin coatings as the temporary application in factory.
Yeah, I think the sandsin, in my experience too, I have the benefit of being in the timber world for a while too, is the benefit I see is sandsin, in my experience, is a wet applied, so that's gonna kind of, in a shop application, depending on storage space, might slow down the ability to kind of get it through the shop and then out to storage before it gets to site, versus if this were to be field applied, or this can certainly be applied in the factory as well. Just it should speed things up where you don't have that curing time before you can stack panels that then head out to the job site. In terms of that's kind of the one of the pros I see over the sandsin. I think maybe one of the cons is some of the sandsin stuff I know is stainable, tintable, so if it's a finish, that'd be more on the opposite side that the ADHERO would go on, though. So I'm not sure it's a direct con of the ADHERO, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely the schedule impact of the curing time for sure. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Lori. Next up is Aaron Gould. Aaron, are you here?
I am, but I'm driving.
Got it. Do you want to ask the question, or would you like us to?
Sure. Just how many perms?
Yep. Yeah, it's 1.1 perms. So in comparison to, you know, the other WRBs in the Pro Clima line, it's much lower, but it is still slightly vapor open. Inherently, you know, it's being used to keep that bulk water out, so it needs to be you know, pretty tight.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron. Next, we have Jeffrey Goldstone.
Yeah, I was asking about compatibility with adhesives. So let's say on a floor deck, if you're going to be doing a glue down floor of some sort, are there compatibility issues that you've encountered?
We haven't yet. This product is literally, I think, about a month since it's been released or to the market in the US. So it's nothing we've run into yet. I would say if that's if you have a glue down situation, I think we would definitely want to work with you to understand what those products are, and then we benefit from having a really tight relationship with Pro Clima, where we can lean on them pretty heavily to give us any technical support that we don't have in house to help you figure out, you know, can it be glued directly to? Do you need some sort of topping board? I know a lot of mass timber buildings for a lot of it's for acoustics. We'll get like a gypcrete topping or some sort of, you know, topping on top of the floors before the final flooring goes down. So we'd have to look at the whole assembly, but that is certainly part of what 475 offers, is kind of helping you analyze your assemblies and figure out what the best solution is for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeffrey. All right, Joshua Tassaro, you have a question.
You kind of touched on this in response to Lori, but I was just wondering if you could speak to factory application and some of the kind of considerations in that realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I said, it's you know, we're a month into this product being available, so I can't say any has been factory supplied. I know that we do have other product consultants that have been in discussion with CLT manufacturers about factory applying. So has it been done yet? I don't think so. Will it happen? I'm fairly certain it will eventually. So really the only considerations to make, it's pretty straightforward. It's you kind of be doing the same thing, just in a controlled environment, and then you just be addressing those seams, you know, at the panels. So that could be done with, you know, thinner strips of the Adhero, or those two panel seams could be tied together with you know, a Tescon Vanna or another Pro Clima tape.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Joshua. Next up, Tulio Squarcio. I hope I got that pronunciation okay.
Yeah, good morning. I just wanted to clarify, you touched up a little bit on the termination to concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Is it recommended to use the primer, or is there a tape alternative?
Yeah, so Contiga Solido IQ, I mentioned, that's a tape that we often specify for marrying the WRB to the concrete. It's got a higher initial tack, so it sticks better than the Tescon Vanna, which is kind of our flagship all around, you know, tape. So if you wanted to stick with the Tescon Vanna, we would advise you to prime it. But if we do have a tape solution with the Contiga Solido IQ, that'll adhere to concrete well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we also had a question from somebody who is gone from the call, but the question was, on these peel and stick products, there's a lot of release film waste. Is the release film biodegradable?
I don't know the answer to that. It's an interesting question. I have had it. I've had contractors ask about recycling programs for that use a lot of the fully adhered membrane. So maybe something that we need to put our heads together and figure out.
Cool, thanks. All right, next up we have Scott Witt.
No, I was just commenting on, and I've seen this on a few other CLT projects, the choice to use CLT as an exterior wall. It seems like an excessive amount of lumber in a wall that could easily use a lot less. I love it for walls or for roofs and floors. This is single family I'm talking about. I'm just curious some of the decisions that go into using that stuff for a wall. I know it goes up fast, but it seems like a tremendous amount of wood that's not necessarily needed.
Yeah,
More
it's a little out of my area of expertise. Yeah, I think probably the architectural aspect is probably what's leading that decision, would be my my assumption.
Yeah, Scott, it's a good question, right? And we could have maybe we need to have a project showcase about that project where we might be able to dive into that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice presentation.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so up next, I think, is Lori Winter has another question.
Yeah, sorry. I think it was touched on briefly, but I'm not sure if I caught the full comparison. UV protection, how might this product stand up to other products on the market for UV protection?
I'd have to pull some other specs from other manufacturers. All I know is it's a 6 week, so 42 day exposure rating. So that's, direct to the weather. If we read through the specs, it does say, if that's of a concern based on project schedule, to consult with us, and we'll take, probably climate and shading and some other things into consideration to let you know, could it stand up longer to the weather?
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Lori. Next up, Jamie Kuhn.
Hey there, Brad. It's Jamie here from up in Vancouver Island, BC, and we just did a project. We're just doing the finishing stages, and we had CLT for the floor, walls, and ceiling, and we really struggled with protecting the floor on the inside of the building. As you might know, out here we get a lot of rain, so we had some water issues. Do you have a product that doesn't stick down, that can be removed, that can protect the CLT if that's the finished floor?
Not that I'm aware of. We have other products that don't stick down that are traditionally, wall, for walls, with Mento. For the WRB, would it be I'd have to dig in with our technical team to find out if it'd be advisable to use it on a floor. Actually, that's what Casey called me about initially up in Maine. Said, what do you think about putting Mento on the roof of this thing to protect these CLTs? And I just happen to have the solution about ready for him to come to market. So that's something
we use that for the walls. So it's just, I don't know if it'll ever come up again, whether we'll do a project like that again, but if you guys have something like that, we'll use it.
Yeah, I will. I'll run it up the flagpole. We'll find out, and I'm sure you're in contact with your rep out there.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
Great.
All right, thank you. So right now, it looks like we've wrapped up the questions, and unless there's anybody who has a last-minute one that they want to chat in, yes, we have one. Shay.
Sure. Sorry about the last minute nature of the question.
Good.
Just wondering if you have any kind of conventional SBS roof systems that you recommend to use with this product, like looking for compatibility.
Let me know what SBS is. Give me
a hot asphaltic roofing system.
Yeah, I would say in most cases, you're going to have insulation outboard, so the compatibility between, if this is going directly on the CLT, generally speaking, it's more about the compatibility of what's happening above that ADHERO would be my experience with the flat roof. So it's probably a buildup of, some sort of rigid insulation and then a topping board. So it's the compatibility of that topping board to whatever your final roofing is probably what's most key.
Yeah. I guess I'm just wondering if there's any concerns with the permeability and vapor drive getting up into the
heading up
system. Yeah.
Usually what happens in those situations, if we do have a concern, we have the ability to run woofies. So we'll take a, in to out of your entire assembly and run it through a woofie calculation to see if we, which, your building exposure, your climate, all that stuff is going to factor into how that assembly performs. So should we ever see something come across our desk that concerns us, we would certainly jump on something like that before we just sell you a product that might lead you to risk. Though the amount of vapor permeance compared to some of the other products we sell is pretty low, where the amount of vapor that's going to make it up through, it's going to take the path of least resistance, where it's probably going to dry to the inside a heck of a lot faster than it's going to try to push its way out. based on that 1.1 perm.
Okay, great. That answers my question. Thanks.
Thanks, Shay. And we have a question from Deirdre Lane.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I put it in the text in the chat. So I'm just wanting to clarify, this can equally be used on OSB and ply sheathing?
Correct. Yep. It's
Okay,
generally, you know, I don't think it's that we have other WRBs, you know, the OSB and the ply tend to be, you know, on the wall more than the roof. Well, I guess on the roof too. So we have some other options as well that can be used on OSB and plywood as well.
Okay,
so this
thank
is
you.
really, you know, designed for mass timber, but compatible with those other components.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Deirdre. And I also want to just give a shout out to Sean St. Amour, a 475 alum, and expert in all things wood and CLT. So, Sean, do you want to say hi?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, no, great stuff. Brad, love the product. Can't wait to try it out here in Vancouver. I need to be doing some mass timber projects. I'm a big fan of ADHERO. I use it all the time. I love the perms. And the big thing I love about ADHERO is that pre-strip. It's at 10 inches. It goes on straight. It doesn't stick to itself like other peel and sticks. And so I highly recommend everyone who's looking at using a peel and stick to try ADHERO and this new product, because you're going to find your trades will install faster. A lot of times peel and sticks need 2 employees to use the product, and you can get away with 1, which, you know, is a labor saving too with this product. So great stuff, Brad. Great project. I love the builder's review of it, and I can't wait to get my hands on it as well. So appreciate the message and the presentation today.
Yeah, thanks for manning the chat over there. I saw you answering all the questions.
No worries. I was multitasking, but I like to help out.
And the 2:30 a.m. wake up call when you tagged me in that post this morning.
Burn the candles at both ends. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. Well, I think that wraps up our questions at this point. So Brad, thank you so much for this presentation and the great discussion that we just had on this cool new product. Again, thank you to 475 for your support of the accelerator, and really big thank you to everyone for joining us today. It was a great crowd and really great questions. And we will, of course, be sharing this video, the video of this event, on our Passive House Accelerator YouTube channel shortly. So if you want to catch up or you want to share this with others, you'll have the opportunity to do so. So have a great rest of your Thursday and be well.
Thank you.